I am so sick of this whole Frank Rossi curse thing. Oh, the away teams, you're cursed now when Rossi's at your games. No, no, no. They went 2-0 this last weekend. Okay, folks, so let's stop with the Rossi curse thing. It's the JB curse, okay? JB is a curse. And if you don't believe me, head coach Nate Milne of Muhlenberg will explain.
I don't know how to break the news to you, but I think that JB was running interference for your sinus tonight. 28-0. He tweets out basically the Rossi curse is over. In the second quarter, he did this, knowing that somehow, at least through the heavens, it was going to get to your team. They would get some thought of it, and then boom, this thing turns into a horse race. There's your answer. That's what happened in this game. JB tweeted way too early, and I think he was paid off by somebody on the Bears side.
I said it once before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And we got to know better than that. Tarnishes the degree of Hobart College when you say things like that way too soon. You can't count your chickens till they're hatched, JB. Have safe travels. But we're going to keep Frank here coming back to Muhlenberg after tonight. JB is no longer welcome.
He dropped a four-letter word on the podcast on the Friday morning episode. Does Hobart allow such, kind of activity by its alums, or do they cut them off, take back the diploma when that happens?
There's certainly high standards when you're a statesman. The thing I was really disappointed with, again, with his foul language, was now I can't show it to my children. Matthew and Nicholas, the apples of my eye, they can't watch the show anymore with unbeknownst to what's going to happen on live television. So I just hope that there's no fine from the FCC. But
We did get a notice from Facebook today on something that happened during it. I don't know if it was related to that or music or what. I'm going to think it's JB's fault.
it's 100% JB.
It's
I
100.
talked to Zuckerberg, and look out.
You guys should go on tour. I mean, the best two-man stand-up comedy routine in Division 3 in the whole nation. I mean, oh my gosh. Well, you put it up on the board last Friday when you kind of surprised me. He'll be the future co-host once I'm sent out to pasture. Coach Milne just away with words. I mean, that was classic.
But wait,
I mean, best.
this wasn't an isolated incident last week, though. Don't you remember what happened during the Barry game that you texted me and you basically felt when they were down 16 at Trinity, they were toast and everything else. And after that
I was a
text,
little nervous.
so Barry basically has you to blame for ending up losing that game because you prematurely tweeted. You've done this before, right? Or,
I didn't tweet. I
texted
didn't
or
tweet
tweeted.
anything. I
Texted,
I, I
texted,
texted you.
texted. Yes.
I was like, oh my god! Like Trinity was really on the mat. I mean, it was like 80-yard touchdown, 80-yard touchdown. The Vikings were on fire in the first half there in Georgia, literally because it was so hot. I couldn't see from the glare from the sun. There was no shade. I got the same thing that you had happen to your phone with the whole it's too hot. It was almost about to shut down half the time. It was kind of crazy, but it was an amazing football game. Some amazing football games all over D3, and I think that's what we're supposed to talk about here today, aren't we?
Well, I do take issue with there's no shade. Now there's plenty of shade. Apparently, it's us.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what the D3 Nation
yeah.
feels like. So let's roll with this. Yeah, we really are a
Keep the
dartboard
darts
or
coming,
bulletin board.
folks.
Yeah. Hey, it's week 5 in a review here on our Crunchtime episode of season 16 of In the Huddle. All kidding aside, week five was really a wild one. Maybe the upsets didn't occur, but they were close to happening in several cases. In a couple, obviously, you got a result that didn't necessarily make sense to people. And as a result, we still have a really big logjam in the top 25 going on where teams that are undefeated can't find their way in this far into the season. And that's not normal to the extent that we're seeing it. See Utica, see
Yeah.
Union for more details, and others for that matter. But JB, your 30,000 foot view as somebody that I got to attend a game this last weekend, which is unusual, but glad to see it happen, and let's see it happen
Yeah.
more. Give us that view from week five.
Well, I mean, so week five, in my opinion, was one where we had these some really big conference games and some of the biggest and best conferences in D3, right? We had the Liberty League, the CCIW, the SAA, the WEAC. Half the undefeated teams we were talking about last week lost. So now we're basically down to about 24. If you include the NESCAC, it's 26, but 24 out of 241. Pretty easy math. It's about 10% of the nation is only left as an undefeated team. There were less upsets, and but once again, we've been seeing these underdogs, Frank, Sewanee and Teal winning again. These guys are having historic seasons on the positive after years and years of losing. I'm happy for those guys. And then there were some fantastic finishes in regions 4 through 6. Too many for us to cover in this episode. We'd have to do 50 clips. There were so many close games out in the Midwest. We'll talk about it a little later on in our crunch time review. But just some great conference games going on all over the place, and I can't wait to talk about it with you here.
Well, you think 50 clips is a big deal? We got 100 clips here. Right here, there's about 100 clips. Okay,
Yeah.
what's another 50?
Yeah.
Well, let's get to this, and then by the way, we're gonna have some viewer questions as well at the end of the show. So if you submitted one, it's coming on up here on our week five crunch time show. The halfway mark. This is literally as we record this, halfway through the regular season, folks. 11-week regular season. We're basically at 5.5 weeks in right now. There you are. And so let's see where this goes. Like we kind of pointed out last week, some things were going to be kind of clear. We thought maybe kind of sort of Grove City. Others a little murky right now in conferences. We'll talk a lot more about that on Friday as we begin to posture you for week 6. But for now, here's crunch time for week number 5 of the 2023 Division III college football season. We started Salve Regina as Merchant Marine visited them. 11 minutes into the game here, Cesar Gonzalez's 2-yard touchdown run, giving Merchant Marine a 10-0 lead early in the game. But one play later, it's Marcelino Labella with his 73-yard pass from Jake Stack for the touchdown, and 10-7 was your score. The team traded field goals for halftime. 17-14 Merchant Marine was the halftime score. In the third quarter, about a minute into it, Marcelino Labella, love the name, 35-yard touchdown pass from Jake Stack. It's 21-17 Salve Regina. 5 seconds into the fourth quarter, it's Thomas Sia Jr., a 4-yard touchdown run. They send that lead at 28-17 to Salve Regina. And then 3 minutes later, Thomas Sia Jr., a 4-yard touchdown run. 35-17, that's the final in favor of the Seahawks. Jake Stack, 19 for 25, 309 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. The defense for Salve Regina, 7 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. Cesar Gonzalez for Merchant Marine Academy, 12 rushes, 47 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Then a game that confuses the heck out of me right now. It's Mass Dartmouth at Western Connecticut. First quarter, about a minute into the game, a punt block is returned 32 yards by Aiden Figueroa for a touchdown for WestCon. 7-0 is their lead there. Then 6 minutes later, Zach Soriano, 11-yard touchdown from Keon Jones. It's 14-0 Western Connecticut. We're going to keep going first quarter, 3 minutes left. Chad Blasky, 5-yard touchdown run. It's 21-0 Westcon. We're going to save you the rest of this game at this point because it didn't get any better. 52-21 Westcon. Lasky, 30 rushes, 233 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Dante Villasantos from Mass Start with 276 total yards, 1 passing touchdown in the interception. The Mascac now is very confusing for me. Westcon may be able to run it. Who knows? We'll see. But that is a result that a lot of people did not expect. And there were some other results across Region 1 that I'm sure people are scratching their heads about, or maybe not. JB will tell you about them.
Yeah, well, it started out on Friday night with Husson winning big. I feel bad for the Dean Bulldogs. They're having a rough season. I'm not sure what's going on over there, but another pretty large loss. And the rest of Region 1 was kind of like that. There were some lopsided scores with a few exceptions here and there, so I'll focus in on those. SUNY Maritime edges Norwich in a new MAC contest 24-21. Westfield State beats Mass Maritime 17-10. Bridgewater, due to this Mass Dartmouth loss, is the lone undefeated team in MASCAC play at 3-0. They had a rough start to their season, 0-2, but have won 3 straight, and here they are, the Bears at the top of the MASCAC. We'll have to keep an eye on that as the season progresses. Springfield won big, 42-10. You can see over in the right-hand corner, big number 97, Quinn Sweeney. He won the new MAC Defensive Player of the Week for a 10-tackle, I think 1 forced fumble, and maybe a sack and a half or tackle for loss performance for the Pride. So congratulations to Quinn. Nichols, Trinity, Wesleyan all win pretty big. Middlebury knocks Bowdoin off the perch of one of the undefeated teams in the NESCAC at home. Tufts takes care of Williams. Coast Guard wins big over MIT. University of New England go Nor'easters 31-14 against Castleton from Vermont. And then we got Colby Bates in the nightcap, and the Mules get a little lead there in the CVB trophy race there. And that was Region 1 for Week 5.
Well, let's go to Region 2. We have a lot more games to give you highlights from in Region 2. First, Franklin and Marshall at Dickinson. First quarter, 1:38 left. Gary Lewis, 9-yard touchdown pass from Ty Trumba makes it 7-3, Franklin and Marshall. Second quarter, 3:43 left. Alex Merrifield gets the punt return in the end zone for the touchdown. That makes the score 10-7 Dickinson. Halftime score 10 apiece. Third quarter, 3:35 left. Gary Lewis, 9-yard touchdown pass again from Ty Trumba. Made it 17-10 Franklin and Marshall. Dickinson would add a field goal with about 11 minutes left. So 17-13 was the score at that point. Still in favor of Franklin and Marshall. But here for Dickinson at the end of the game, 3rd and 10, and here is a pass interference call that brings the ball to the 2-yard line. And time running out here, 4.6 seconds left. First and goal from the 2-yard line.
Igwin snaps it. Does hand it off. Deontay Ball! He's still up and he's down! Timeout! Did they give the timeout?
We're going to run it here with the clock, and you can see you're slowing it down again. I don't think he got there, JB, in time with that timeout. I think they didn't deserve this next play. That goes like this.
I go with a sneak. No, chipped it out. Deontay Ball! He's in the end zone! He's in the end zone! Red Devils win! Oh my goodness! They have done it!
Well, regardless of what you think of it, the final score is 19-17, Dickinson winning. Deontay Ball, 30 rushes, 155 yards, 1 rushing touchdown as time expired. Ty Trumba from Franklin and Marshall, 14 for 19, 191 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. And we'll talk a little bit more about that one a little bit later here in Crunchtime. Grove City hosting Washington and Jefferson for the end of the gauntlet, essentially, for Grove City. 2:53 left, second quarter. Here's Clayton Parrish with a 2-yard touchdown run, 14-3. Grove City has the lead. 50 seconds later, though, it's W&J's John Peduzzi, 22 yards from Jacob Pugh, 14-10 Grove City's lead at that point. Third quarter, W&J's John Peduzzi again, 29 yards from Pugh, 17-14. W&J now has the lead. A field goal, though, would later tie it for Grove City. Third quarter, 24 seconds left. Peduzzi for the hat trick, 18 yards from Jacob Pugh, 24-17 in favor of W&J. Grove City's Scott Frazier, though, will be heard from, 24 yards from Logan Pfeiffer with 12:55 left in the game, 24 apiece. 7 minutes later, it's Frazier again from Pfeiffer, this time from 5 yards out. And that made things 31-24, Grove City's lead. Jacob Pugh later on was trying to lead his team on a big drive here to the 18-yard line they got, but you'll see the fumble forced by Bryce Skolnick and ultimately recovered by Grove City at the 22-yard line. They did have to punt with 11 seconds left, so here's the final play, and Pugh is intercepted, and that would do it. Grove City wins 31-24. It's their best start since 1926. Logan Pfeiffer, 13 for 22, 185 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Jacob Pugh, 3 passing touchdowns that you saw and an interception. What a game there. Waynesburg and Teal. We're talking about Teal again on the show. That never happens twice in a season. Well, here we go. Second quarter, 36 seconds left. Waynesburg's Brandon Tyson, 41-yard pick six. Made it 7-3 Waynesburg. Third quarter, 14-12 left. Joseph Fell, a 52-yard touchdown run, 9-7 Teal. Third quarter, still 3:33 left. Zane Pauley, a 63-yard touchdown run, gives Waynesburg back the lead, 14-9. Teal's Joseph Fell, though, gets a 6-yard touchdown run with 2 minutes left. It's 15-14 Teal. And at the end of the game here, you'll see an attempt here by Waynesburg does not get converted, and that means Teal wins the game, 15-14. Teal's first homecoming win in 9 years. Joseph Fell, 263 total yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and for Waynesburg, Zane Pauley, 1 rushing touchdown. We'll continue in Region 2. I'm getting winded here. Are we almost done? It's Muhlenberg at Ursinus. We'll go back to the Centennial Conference here. And in the first quarter, 3:24 left, it's James Nye with a 19-yard touchdown pass from Joe Rapetti, and boy, he gets smacked in the chest trying to make that catch. But he was going to be fine. You'll see more from him in a moment. Second quarter, 14:03 left. Timothy Buda, 69-yard touchdown pass from Joe Rapetti, 14-0 Muhlenberg. Staying in the second quarter, 2.5 minutes later, there he is, James Nye, shaking off would-be tacklers for a 70-yard touchdown pass from Joe Rapetti, 21-0 Mules. We'll go further, second quarter, 6:25 left, Amari Dunn, 30-yard touchdown run. That made it 28-0 in favor of Muhlenberg. Still second quarter, but this thing was just a track meet in the first half. Ryder Zilkowski, a 40-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Bradford, 28-7. So Ursinus heard from at this point in the game. Fourth quarter, we'll take you here to Dennis Cameron's 30-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Bradford. Now 28-14. They're creeping closer here to Muhlenberg. And 5:10 left in the fourth quarter. Dawson Freesis gets a 1-yard touchdown run, 28-20. So there was a chance here. Ursinus would get the ball back with 1:16 left. But Jalen Bradford, incomplete. Looking for Caden Johnson down deep on the field and could not get it there. Muhlenberg hangs on, 28-20. First win in 3 tries for the Mules against Ursinus' Bears. Joe Rapetti, 427 total yards, 1 a night, 3 passing touchdowns. Jalen Bradford, 21 for 38, 274 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and an interception. Okay, here we go. Final game of Region 2 with highlights. Salisbury at Christopher Newport. 12 minutes into the game, Trey Hayes for Christopher Newport. A 25-yard touchdown pass from Connor Berry made it 7-0 CNU. Halftime score would be 10-0 for them. Third quarter, 6:33 left. A.J. Butler gets a pick 6 for 53 yards, and those 6 points plus the extra point made it 10-7. Still CNU's lead though. Third quarter, 2:49 left. Connor Berry, a 4-yard touchdown run for Christopher Newport, 17-7. And then in the fourth quarter, 49 seconds into it, Gunnar White, a 65-yard touchdown pass from Matt Dzerzski. It's 24-7. Christopher Newport with the lead. Christopher Newport with the win, 24-14. Connor Berry, 177 total yards, 1 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Micah Brubaker, 15 rushes, 75 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. JB, take it away. Region 2.
Yeah, so Region 2 had a lot of interesting games going on this past Saturday. The favorites in the Centennial, Landmark, and Empire 8, though, all won pretty big. You can see Hopkins, Susquehanna, and Cortland each putting up 50 points or more in their wins. Ithaca used 3 turnovers from Hobart, along with a 79-yard Jalen Leonard Osborne touchdown run in the fourth quarter to put it away. The Statesman 24-14. Carnegie Mellon hangs on in a lower scoring game than I think we expected, Frank, on Saturday night, 19-3 over the Gators. Elsewhere, Landmark play kicked off officially. There's Katie Voldich, the commissioner there, with a couple of the coaches, I think from Moravian and from Keystone, to mark this historic day for them. They had engraved football, as you can see, and Moravian got the win, 58-34. But elsewhere in Region 2, William Patterson beats Kane 21-9. Your Union Dutchman Chargers, whatever we're calling them at this point, 34-0. An amazing defensive output by them this season. They keep winning by shutouts. It's pretty impressive. Utica wins big. I guess Freddie Freebird, is that was his name, Frank? they tracked him down. Yeah, they tracked him down and they found the moose tracks. Gettysburg wins a close one over McDaniel, 27-20. And then the rest of the way, you've got Case Western. Rochester having to come back to beat Buffalo State was a little interesting. Montclair wins big over neighbor TCNJ. Brockport wins the Courage Bowl 35-18, and St. Vincent gets a win over Geneva on Saturday night. That's Region 2.
You want to talk about the Union offense and Donovan Piccati, it's having a good season, but the defense,
Yeah.
I mean, still only allowing 1 touchdown, I believe, so far this season. So the Garnet Chargers they're charging through the Liberty League now, or the Dutchman, if you want. Let me get out of this conundrum and just say we've got another game to talk about here. Let's go to Region 3.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the game you attended. I should have you do these highlights, but here we go. Trinity at Berry. First quarter, 4:55 left. It's DeAndre Wilson with a 35-yard touchdown pass from Blake Hembry. It's 14-7 Berry here in this game early on. It's a field goal that would trade off for Trinity, so then Berry comes back with Bryce Hearing. 5 minutes into the second quarter, getting a 53-yard touchdown pass from Hembry. So now it's a 22-10 lead. Again, a trade-off of a field goal, 21-yarder this time for Trinity. Leads 2 with 7:54 left in the second quarter. Brandon Cade getting an 88-yard touchdown run. At this point, it is a 29-13 lead in favor of Berry. A lot of people, JB, thought this game might be over at this point. Well, here we go. 4:08 left, second quarter. Cole Monaco, a 5-yard touchdown pass from Tucker Horn. 29-20 in favor of Berry still. We'll go to the third quarter, and 5 minutes left. Ryan Murfield gets a 12-yard touchdown pass from Tucker Horn. 29-27. They're coming back here. And then eventually, 1:47 left third quarter. Murfield again, 81-yard touchdown pass from Tucker Horn. They take the lead for the first time in a long time in this game. 34-29. Trinity leading. Fourth quarter, 40 seconds into it, Berry would be heard from Amari Smith, a 58-yard touchdown pass from Blake Hembry. They take back the lead, 37-34. 9:59 left in the fourth quarter. Tyler Huddle, a 52-yard field goal. You'll get a different angle here, too, to see how much he made it by. And he actually got it in by about 6 or 7 yards, I think. 37 apiece. Fourth quarter, 6:41 left. Legend Grigsby, what a speedster and agility galore. 25-yard touchdown pass from Tucker Horn. 44-37 in favor of Trinity. Berry would have a chance. Well, you have a great view of it from the end zone cam you had here of the hold in the end zone that leads to the safety. 46-37, Trinity leading. 46-37, Trinity wins. The teams combined for 1,041 total yards. Both quarterbacks have 4 passing touchdowns and over 300 yards. The defense of Berry, 11 tackles for loss. What a game. More about that in a little bit. I'll let you go on about that game and others for sure. Howard Payne at Hardin Simmons. This was an interesting game. Second quarter, 14 seconds into it. Gotti Payat gets a 57-yard touchdown pass from A.J. Hawkins, 14-0. Hardin-Simmons leads, but Howard Payne would be heard from just before halftime. Jordan Carroll, a 10-yard touchdown pass from Landon McKinney, makes it 17-14. Howard Payne with the lead. Third quarter, midway through, Noah Garcia for Hardin-Simmons gets the lead back for his team. A 19-yard touchdown run, 21-17. A minute later, though, Howard Payne responds. Gus Charles, 70-yard touchdown pass from Landon McKinney, makes it 24-21 Howard Payne. But very quickly here, a kickoff return for a touchdown. KJ Peoples gets his team the lead back, 28-24 in favor of Hardin-Simmons. They would be the next to score again here with 2 minutes left third quarter. Colton Marshall, an 8-yard touchdown run, 34-24. A field goal later, though, would make it a one-possession game. Fourth quarter, 8:13 left. It's Javian Miles, a 36-yard touchdown run, 34-33. The two-point conversion, though, is no good. We'll go later into the game, though. Hardin-Simmons, 2:14 left. Colton Marshall, 1-yard touchdown run, 40-33. Hardin-Simmons with the lead as they couldn't convert their extra point. We'll go to the end here. Landon McKinney intercepted by DeMarcus Coleman. That would do it. Hardin-Simmons holds on in a really exciting game. 40-33. Landon McKinney, 25 for 50, 360 yards, 3 passing touchdowns and an interception. Colton Marshall for Hardin-Simmons, 3 rushing touchdowns. Let's go to Sewanee at Hendricks. You mentioned this game earlier. Let's see some of the highlights from it. 8 minutes left second quarter. Hendricks' Peyton Wingfield is a 13-yard touchdown pass from Jacob Bunif. It's a 13-7 Hendricks lead. Halftime, they'll be 13-10. Third quarter, 3:49 left. John Luke Lassiter gets a 7-yard touchdown pass from Jaden Bragg. 17-13. It's Sewanee's lead. Fourth quarter, 9 minutes left. Jack Satterfield gets a 46-yard field goal. 20-13. Sewanee's lead. Hendricks, with 1:55 left, has the touchdown. It's Kanan Utley getting a 9-yard touchdown pass from Jacob Bunif. 20-19, but the extra point is blocked. And so one last chance with 13 seconds left for Hendricks here, and Jacob Bunif's pass is incomplete, and that would do it. Sewanee, 20-19, moving to 3-1 of the season, 2-0 in the SAA. Hey, Trinity, it ain't over yet because there's that team still to go through. And for Sewanee, 1 fumble recovery for touchdown, a blocked field goal, 2 PATs blocked. I mean, what a day for the special teams, especially. Jacob Bunif, 25 for 44, 325 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and the best start for Sewanee since 2001. Finally, in Region 3, Bridgewater at Hampton-Sydney. 6:30, first quarter. Kennedy Fauntleroy gets a 65-yard touchdown run to make it 14 apiece. 4:12 left first quarter. Malik Frost, 12-yard touchdown run. Hampton-Sydney takes the lead, 21-14. We'll go to the third quarter, 2:45 left. Austin Fernandez gets a 12-yard touchdown run from Andrew Puccinelli to make it 31-24 Hampton-Sydney. Third quarter, 49 seconds left. Though Bridgewater responds as Montez Green gets a 48-yard touchdown pass from Malcolm Anderson to tie the game at 31 apiece. Back and forth we go. Fourth quarter, 13:39 left. Hampton-Sydney's Jamadia Whitby gets a 33-yard touchdown pass from Andrew Puccinelli to make it 38-31 Hampton-Sydney. We'll go to the end of the game, though. Bridgewater's Kennedy Fauntleroy, a 1-yard touchdown run. That takes them within 1 point. They decide to go for 2, and Bridgewater's is successful as Malcolm Anderson finds the end zone on his rush attempt. Here's the last chance for Hampton-Sydney. Andrew Puccinelli is sacked. That pretty much does it for the game, and Bridgewater wins. In, not a stunner necessarily, but just in a very, very tough way, back and forth, as Fauntleroy gets 32 rushes, 246 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Puccinelli, 24 for 37 day, 333 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. I should say it was 39-38 final for those that didn't read the screen. JB, Region 3, you got to see some of it for yourself and hear about a lot of it through people back and forth on social media, like that Hardin-Simmons game. That was a heart stopper of sorts. And those other 2 games that we just mentioned as well. Those were some great games in Region 3.
Yeah, there was a lot of great action, a lot of high-powered offenses, lots of points. Quickly, we'll just run through. Randolph-Macon, Belhaven, Southern Virginia, and McMurray all winning pretty big. Shenandoah as well, 38-3 over Ferrum. Brevard had a little bit of a tougher time beating North Carolina neighbors Greensboro 34-24, and Huntington wins big over Methodist. That's setting up a big game this weekend, Frank, that we'll talk about on Friday between Huntington and Belhaven. Maybe the de facto USA South Championship, we shall see. Rhodes wins 31-7 over Southwestern. Washington Lee takes Averett out of the undefeated column with a 25-20 win. And then this score sort of surprised a lot of folks, Frank. Millsaps beating Birmingham Southern for the first time, 14-8. Tough season so far for the Panthers, but congratulations to the Majors on what's a big win for their program. Texas Lutheran comes up a field goal short against Sul Ross State on their goodbye to D3 tour, I guess. So congratulations to those guys. Good luck in future endeavors. And then ETBU wins 35-7 over Austin, and it closes out a great slate in Region 3. I mean, Frank, I had the best time at Barry. The people there could not have been nicer. Beautiful facility. I guess it's the largest campus in the world with like about 27,000 acres. It's like it almost looked like a plantation horse farm. I mean, just beautiful scenery and just a big crowd, a lot of excitement. And Trinity was struggling early on with some of these long, explosive plays, but their defense pulled it together, kept Barry out of the end zone really just one time in the second half, and what a close call. I think we'll have a little more to talk about that one later on in the MVP section, but a great weekend for Region 3.
Let's take it to Region 4. 2 pages left for me here, basically, of notes to read to you folks. So here we go. As the game I attended on Saturday was North Central at Wheaton. First quarter, 44 seconds into the game, Joe Sacco with a 73-yard touchdown run, 7-0. And you begin to say to yourself, maybe they do have some running backs still, despite Ethan Greenfield graduating. And they certainly do. First quarter will stay in at 9:27 left out. Ben Bonga responds with a 14-yard touchdown pass from Ben Thorson to make it 7 apiece here in the game. But then Joe Sacco says, I want that 7-point lead back here. And he gets a 43-yard touchdown run. 14-7, North Central leads. We'll continue. 2:04 left, first quarter. Luke Lannon. He is just fast. 78-yard touchdown run. 21-7. That's North Central's lead at that point. We'll move to the second quarter now, and here's another speedster, Charles Coleman, getting a 65-yard touchdown pass from Luke Lannon, 28-7. One of the few passes needed in this game for Luke Lannon, and that was a good one. In the second quarter, 37 seconds left, Jordan Chisholm gets his 1-yard touchdown run. That made the score 35-7. The final score, 54-35. It really wasn't that close when you really look at the entire game. Luke Lannon, 336 total yards, 1 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Ben Thorson, 22 for 38, 235 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. And North Central declared battle-tested by Frank Rossi. We'll just move on from that. It is go at Wartburg as our next game here. And 9 seconds left in the first quarter, Jack Shaw gets this huge pick six to make it 7-0 Co. He'll rumble 87 yards basically to get that touchdown, and it was an eyebrow raiser. But so is the score going to 14-0 midway through the second quarter. 7:17 left, second quarter. Wartburg's John McConaughey gets a 25-yard touchdown pass from Niall McLaughlin to make it 14-7. So Wartburg trying to climb their way back into this game, and then just seconds later, it's Parker Rockford with a 37-yard pick six of his own. That would tie the game as he rumbles his 37 yards, 14 apiece. Just before halftime, though, Co does not go away. Ray Seidel, 1-yard touchdown run, 21-14 Co. We'll fast forward to the fourth quarter. First play of it, it's Hunter Clausen. Turbo, 3-yard touchdown run, 21 apiece. Fourth quarter, 9:27 left. Turbo, again, Hunter Clausen, 9-yard touchdown run, 27-21 Wartburg. Then we'll look at 2 chances that Co had. 2.5 minutes left in the game, 4th and 7, and you'll see Carter Mask is incomplete, and so they miss that opportunity. They'll get the ball back with 1.5 minutes left. It's Carter Mask, again, incomplete on 4th and 17. So Wartburg's defense clamps down and wins this game 27-21. Co-led 21-14 at the half. Hunter Clausen, 21 rushes, 149 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Owen Grover, 14 tackles for Wartburg. Might hear more about him a little bit later on here on our show. St. John's at Augsburg. 2 MIAC games coming up here for you. This is the first. Halftime score is 14-6 St. John's. Third quarter, 9:12 left. Augsburg's Trey Lee gets a 2-yard touchdown run. However, a 2-point conversion failed for Augsburg here, so it's 14-12 in favor of St. John's. Third quarter, 4:59 left. Dylan Wheeler for St. John's gets a 24-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Severson, making it 20-12 St. John's because they missed their extra point. Fourth quarter, 12:17 left. Tyrone Wilson, 7-yard touchdown pass. Cade Sheehan throwing it there, and the 2-point conversion pass intercepted. So nobody can get their conversions here. 20-18, Augsburg still trailing in this game. Fourth quarter, 10:11 left. It's St. John's Mendez Marcelio, a 47-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Severson gives them the lead at 27-18. They get their extra point, thankfully there. Fourth quarter, 3:39 left. Augsburg's Tyreek Givant, a 13-yard pass from Cade Sheehan. So 27-24, extra point no good. So Augsburg with a chance here on the onside kick. It is not to be for them. St. John's runs out the clock. But my goodness, JV, 27-24. St. John's win the game. They probably should have won by 2 to 3 touchdowns. They win by 3. Augsburg's defense holds St. John's at 31 rushing yards. Aaron Severson, 25 for 37, 367 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Cade Sheehan for Augsburg, 23 for 35, 214 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Finally, Carleton at Concordia Moorhead. Midway in the third quarter is 21-14 Concordia Moorhead. Third quarter, 3:18 left. Carleton's Nathan Strafe gets a 9-yard touchdown pass from Jack Curtis to tie the game at 21 apiece. About 2.5 minutes later, Ben Blancas, a 13-yard touchdown pass from Cooper Matter, gets it to 28-21 in favor of Concordia Moorhead. We'll go fourth quarter, 11:19 left. Xavier Carroll gets a 1-yard touchdown run, 35-21 Concordia Moorhead. Fourth quarter, 7:01 left. Carleton's Nathan Strafe again, a 27-yard touchdown pass from Jack Curtis, makes it 35-28. And then Carleton with the ball back, 20 seconds left. Nathan Street, an 8-yard touchdown pass from Jack Curtis. They go for 2, and here is the pass play. Nate Toole's pass attempt to Ryan Stores is good, 36-35 after that 15-play touchdown drive. And we'll go to the end of the game. Cooper Mattern's pass is complete to Owen Miller, and an illegal forward pass is called ultimately on this play. That would pretty much end the game, 36-35 in favor of Carleton. Jack Curtis, 414 total yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and an interception. Cooper Mattern for Concordia Moorhead, 349 total yards, 3 passing, 1 rushing touchdowns, and an interception. JB, that's regions 4 through 6 for me, but you got a lot more where that came from.
Yeah, we almost have 2 more slides worth of scores to run through, so I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. The top 5 or 10 teams in the nation, when you look at Mount Union, Whitewater, River Falls, Linfield, they all won pretty convincingly. That Whitewater game, we can talk a little bit more in the future, but that was an impressive 37-21 victory over Oshkosh. La Crosse almost gave up a pretty big lead to Stout, but they hung on to win 45-40. John Carroll, Aurora, and Alma all win pretty convincingly to round out the top 25 scores. Olivet gets a win over Region 1's Alfred State. DePauw and Wabash get wins, sort of keeping them on track for that big Mononbell and potentially a conference championship game at the end of the season. Kenyon and Albion also scoring over 40 points in their wins, and Crown takes down Westminster, Missouri, 25-17. On the next slide, we've got these are all these close games I was telling you about, Frank. So Minnesota Morris with a big win in the UMAC, 24-10. But we had Capital winning by 4, Franklin winning by a touchdown, Defiance beating Hanover. We also found out earlier this week, Frank, that Defiance is taken off for the NAIA. Did I say that right again? I don't know. So that, we'll have to talk more about that in the future. Elsewhere, Heidelberg hangs on for a close call, 20-17 against Muskingum. Wittenberg needs overtime to take down Denison, 27-24. Scholastica beats Manchester 23-17. St. Norbert wins by a field goal, 24-21 over Lakeland. Elsewhere, Cornell and Ripon, another field goal game, 36-33. Carroll drops a close call to Augustana, who's still, doing pretty well there in the CCIW. I'm sticking with the Vikings as sort of a potential Isthmus Bowl pick, Frank. We'll see how that plays out. Carthage 27-20 over Elmhurst, and Illinois College wins 20-17 over Monmouth. And then Eau Claire and Stevens Point, another touchdown game, 24-17. Lewis and Clark in the Red Eye games, Frank, beats George Fox for the first time in double overtime, 37-31. And Cal Lutheran edges Chapman there in Southern California, 24-21. Lots of scores happening. Northwestern had a big win over Mountain Luther in their conference. And just, lots of stuff happening in regions 4 through 6, almost too much to go through.
Yeah, quite a bit for sure. And that is crunch time for week number 5 of the 2023 Division III college football season. Well, JB, I don't know how you picked your MVPs this week, because there were a lot of performances to kind of pour through here across the board, across the country. And I think we just talked about one of the players at the end of my spiel on Crunch Time. Jack Curtis had quite a day for Carleton. And why don't you tell folks about why you picked him?
Yeah, well, I mean, Carleton, here they are, very quietly in one of the 24 playoff eligible teams. It's still undefeated, and a lot had to do with the comeback that he led. 5 touchdowns, over 400 yards of total offense. Just an impressive showing. I mean, there were lots of great statistical passing and touchdown performances over the weekend, but this one felt like this was a game that could have slipped away from Carleton, and through Curtis's and his teammates' efforts, they were able to stay 5-0. So only a sophomore too, Frank. So the MEAC is kind of on notice for at least another couple of years. Carleton's Jack Curtis got my offensive MVP award. Defensively, Owen Grover had a key stop in that 27-21 win. It was one of those games where the Knights were struggling a little bit, and when they look back on their season, that tackle for a loss or that big play on third down could be the difference between them being undefeated and not. So great performance by Owen Grover, one of the best linebackers out there in the country. And then sad to save the best for last, Frank. My man Tyler Huddle, in the huddle, Tyler from Trinity. It was funny because I was on the Trinity sideline for most of the game because the sun was behind us, and as you told me, you got to make sure you get your phone, with the sun behind you. And so I'd be chatting with him every once in a while when I was kind of on the far side. If you were looking at the video, I guess it would have been the left hand end zone, and chatting me up. A funny guy. Wolfman Jack-esque with the mullet and the whole thing. And we had a pretty fun interview after the game. And when I told him, after I saw that 52-yard field goal that he kicked to tie it up 37-37 in the fourth quarter, I said, I'm going to definitely interview you afterwards. And he was like, yes, I finally made it. And we had a fun conversation. I actually had to hire his girlfriend to shoot the video. I don't have all the Frank Rossi accoutrements. So, I was kind of roughing it there, but what a performance, 3 field goals, all the extra points. I think he totaled 14 points, which was more than the margin of victory. It was a close game, and they needed those in the huddle points to get the win at Barry. Fantastic day of football. I'm really glad I made the trip. Definitely got more than my money's worth with all the back and forth and that crazy game. I've got I got the Vikings gear over my shoulder here. They couldn't have been nicer. I mean, it was hot as heck. I was hiding under the shade of one of those large what are those things called? Where they shoot the video from the end zone, and it's like an elevated
the platforms. Yeah, the elevated
platform thing, I guess. So I'm like hiding behind there. It's so hot, and one of the people from the sports department at Barry, brings me a Chick-fil-A sandwich, a cold water. I was like, oh, thank you, because we were roasting out there. But what a fun time, and I'm really glad I got to catch that one in person.
Before we do anything else, we do have to look at the fact that we both went 10-2 on the week, and so I still retain that very
Yep.
thin two-game edge. I don't even know how I stuck with my lead, but ultimately we are just nailing these games. This is crazy that we're at 49-12 and it's 47-14 right now on this season. Again, we're not
Not
picking
bad.
cupcake games here, folks. We're picking some really good stuff. Um,
Yep.
Let me talk about my visits this week before we get to viewer questions. And for me, first I have to send a shout out to the Ursinus Chain Gang. I promised them I would. Quite often the way lighting works, or if there's too many people on the home side, that you have to try to bustle your way through or whatever. You'll go to the visitor side. It's just usually more convenient for what we do with our video and whatnot. So you get to hang out with the Chain Gang, and you get to see some odd bunches out there. Usinus definitely had some quality kids out there. And guys, thanks for a fun night. When it came down to it, your team didn't win, but at least they made a very good showing in the game after looking like they were going to get blown out. And as always, thanks to the
Absolutely.
Bears fans for their good times and positive responses and thoughts that they gave for our show. We appreciate that, and of course the Mules fans who we've caught up with multiple times throughout the last few years. North Central Wheaton. I was lucky to get out of LaGuardia because of everything that happened there the previous day. But Terminal B is where I left out of, and it was very nice compared to last time I left out of Terminal B at LaGuardia. And all I can tell you, folks, is that North Central is the real deal, no doubt. They read and listen to our shows and our different stuff all over the place, on D3 Football or on this show, and they knew what the score prediction was. I didn't hear the end of it, that's for sure. But everybody was all in good fun about it, and shook hands, took pictures with folks, and applauded some of the interesting comments thrown in my direction. So, needless to say, it was a great weekend of travel for both JB and me, and glad we could both get out on the road for some big games. This coming weekend, it's going to be RPI hosting Ithaca for me. I got to stay close to home anyway, and that's one of the biggest games in the country, actually, when you look at the full
Yeah, it
list of
really is.
games. So we'll be doing that. Uh, you'll be staying home. Well, actually, you're not staying home even. You're going to be celebrating your wife's big 5-0.
Yeah, we got a lot of birthday action happening in the Baker family. When we're recording this, it's actually my son's 17th birthday. So happy birthday to Walter Declan Baker. It's hard to believe I have a 17-year-old, the baby of the family. He's almost as old as a college kid now, which is kind of crazy, but that's where I get all these gray hairs and all this other stuff coming from. But yeah, up next, and then Phoenix, my oldest, is turning 19 on Sunday. But yeah, we're going to New York to celebrate Jen's 50th birthday. Technically, it's not until the 11th, so I think with the next Crunchtime, we can do a whole, a Jen parade for that. But we thought it would be fun to do a little weekend trip. 4 of the 5 kids can make the trip, which is really exciting. 3 of them are already up in the Northeast, so that helps. And we're looking forward to celebrating a nice weekend. Hopefully the rain that's been going on up there for the last couple of weeks can take a break. It's been raining down here in Florida nonstop for several weeks now too. But we're looking forward to a little fun in Manhattan and some family time, which is always appreciated.
JB takes Manhattan. Wow. Let's go to the questions here as we get toward the 50-minute mark here of the show. We had our call out on Twitter, and first we'll start with Dingo Talk at Dingo Talk. Do you think number 23 Grove City runs the table? Interesting question. They should. Doesn't mean they will. This is really an odd position to be in. And Coach DiDonato talked to Pat Coleman about it in the Fast Five on the Around the Nation podcast this week. they've got to focus. They need to run the table if they want to host a playoff game, and that's still not even guaranteed. But they likely would host one game if they were able to run this table. I think they can and will. I think they will go 10-0. But would I be shocked if they drop one at 9-1 because maybe they get caught snoozing a little bit and the team bites them? I wouldn't be shocked, but I think they should and will go 10-0, and then we'll see what happens with the season. What's your thought?
Yeah, well, when you look at their schedule, I mean, they're at Geneva and at Allegheny, so the next 2 weeks is really when they're going to have to dig in a little bit and not get caught asleep at the wheel here. That St. Vincent home game, though, on the 21st could be a tough one also. And then, their rivalry game at Teal in week 11. I know that in recent years, Teal's been an automatic W for most teams, but all of a sudden they're winning games. So this slam dunk thing may or may not be the case. So Grove City is going to have to win 3 of their final 5 games on the road, and that's always a little bit trickier. But for the most part, I feel like Grove City's proven that they basically kind of won the pack. They ran the gauntlet. They just have to keep doing their thing, running the ball and playing turnover-free offense, playing tough defense, and they should be good to go for the rest of the season.
Yeah, we look at this margin of error of one game they could lose and still win the pack, and you don't want to give up that margin of error early. That's for sure. If you are going to drop one, drop it at the end of the season, not at the midpoint of the season, because then you're going to be kind of on pins and needles about what happens from there and walking on eggshells, if you want to use that analogy too. Does Utica crack the top 25? It's just a logjam, folks. And so you have to look at kind of their schedule this season and say they didn't play a quality enough schedule to automatically insert themselves at 5-0 into there. But if they keep winning, yes, they will get there eventually. There's no doubt. I always do the rundown of who's undefeated when I'm looking at my ballot to see who to put in. But the problem is I'm not knocking teams out of my ballot because either a team like Barry outperforms in a way that even with a loss, you have to respect them enough to realize they are a very good team and belong in there.
Yeah.
Or a Mary Hardin Baylor who schedule themselves in a way that kind of creates this like bracketing effect inside the top 25 for them. Unless they lose another game, then they're out at that point. But Utica, Union, others are all going to have a little bit of trouble getting there until some other teams start losing games that they shouldn't be losing in the conference play. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. I understand the question, I understand the complaints, but at the same time, there's only 25 spots in the top 25 with a lot of quality teams out there. Is there any chance Whitewater passes Mount Union for the number 2 spot? Mount Union better stop this. They've had 2 really bad halves this season in terms of offense. Where basically they were 0-0 against Ohio Northern for a grand majority of the first half on Saturday. And they had the other game earlier in the season, too, so against Marietta, that they didn't necessarily kick very well in that game score-wise. So you're playing teams that you should be beating by 3 to 4 touchdowns, absolutely, probably 5 to 6, honestly. And we're watching these performances. We watch the scoreboard, and it gives us an idea of how teams are doing or how they are compared to normal. Whitewater, after some inconsistency, looked very good, obviously, on Saturday. So I'm going to say to you, with their win versus Oshkosh, and it was a pretty easy win over Oshkosh in the grand scheme of things, that Whitewater probably doesn't jump Mount Union unless something weird happens in a Mount Union score and Whitewater starts beating teams in the by 30, 40 points that they're supposed to have close games against. La Crosse, Platteville, stuff like that. River Falls will be a huge game for them ultimately. If they can beat River Falls by 30, 40 points, maybe we reassess who's number 2 in the country at that point. Keith McMillan has Whitewater at number 1. I don't agree with it at this point because how do you put them above North Central right now? How do you put them above North Central?
Yeah.
I was
gonna throw this, and I think I think you've got another question coming up about North Central, but I got one for you too. But I'll let you read off this next one.
Rambo's Carving Knife, who's at Pritzker Gunt, asked, "Have you ever seen as dominant of a Russian game in person as the four-headed Hydra NCC displayed in the low brass bell game?" I mean, it was good, no doubt. And this is the problem. I've been at games with Ethan Greenfield. I've been at games with running
Yeah.
backs, for how many years that have been top level running backs because I cover the Stag Bowl and the playoffs for D3 football in this show. So it's great. And four-headed monster, sure. I mean, they were all very good running backs. I think, what, three of them had two touchdowns ultimately each, and then, or at least Luke Lane too. I mean, there were touchdowns after touchdowns in that game going on there. But yeah, it was a very good performance, no doubt, and it's up there for sure. Um, run pass balance ultimately is going to be necessary as North Central goes through a playoff run eventually. So would like to maybe see a little bit more passing happening in that game, but it's not to say Luke Lane can't throw. He can. We know that. We've seen it over the years. So I'm going to say the jury's out on that. It was a very good performance. It was a dominant performance against a top 10 team at the time. And we'll see where it goes from here. The problem for North Central ultimately is kind of like Grove City. Who's going to beat them? I mean, Augustana will try their best, but I just don't see it happening at this point after seeing what I saw on Saturday. Overall, their next stop is the playoffs, and probably not until week 2 of the playoffs for them to see a team that they're going to, be able to be measured against per se. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, given how tough Augustana played Wheaton, I have a feeling that the Vikings will probably be the best test that North Central will face. But I think from a Division III national perspective, seeing a win like that might be a little discouraging for folks out there. I mean, North Central looked so dominant. I mean, can anybody hang with these guys? I mean, Wheaton was supposed to be a top 10 team. Now, we saw that, Oshkosh was beaten pretty handily by Whitewater. Does that mean that Wheaton's only 9-point win over Oshkosh a couple weeks ago doesn't look as good? Maybe we were sort of overrating Wheaton. I don't know, but at the end of the day, they're still the defending champs, and they're going to be, the number one ranked team in the country for a long time. Going back to that quick Utica question that you had, Frank, they have a chance to prove it this weekend. They're going to play Cortland. If you want to be ranked and maybe get the respect you deserve, then beat the defending Empire 8 champs. They've looked good in their 5 wins so far, although the Lyco game was kind of a little bit closer than I think that they expected. But this is a great opportunity for the Pioneers to sort of prove themselves and to prove themselves to the voting public, even with a loss, if they keep it close, that they're top 25 worthy.
And let's go to the next question, which is from Joanne's at Sanchez. What's going on with the NJAC? Antoine Cuff doesn't want us to talk about this, but we will still. I was taking a pause there on you because I was actually doing the math to figure out, let's see here, the NJAC and out-of-conference games went to 7 and I think 15. Is that right? 5, 9. Yeah.
I guess that's what happens when you pair up with the Centennial Conference.
Well, and that's one big thing, and there's part of the answer. They picked, the team-up conference, as JB's saying, that you probably needed to reconsider if you were looking just for pure wins. But I'm going to tell you the answer to this question, and it's over my shoulder right now, and that's Wesley. And the fact that Wesley is no longer in the NJAC or anywhere for that matter. That team was the team that sort of elevated the competition inside that conference. And so after a couple of years of not having them, it's going to start having an effect on that conference as a whole. Salisbury is having a down year, clearly, compared to what we expect from them. Christopher Newport's a very good team. So more or less, I'm going to say to you, don't give short shrift to Christopher Newport. We saw this coming to a certain degree, that CNU with Dezersky in here and everything else was going to be very good this year. But the conference as a whole is obviously struggling. Rowan is not the Rowan of 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's kind of a little surprising that they haven't bounced back at a certain point here. And then Montclair,
Yeah.
with Giancola, leaving and whatnot, that obviously
Hmm.
doesn't help stability per se, but obviously their coaching staff is a lot of the same guys from Giancola's time, and
Yeah.
so they'll straighten out that ship
Absolutely.
eventually. But
They're getting there.
again, Wesley not being there, not giving them a standard of excellence, and giving them a lot of wins in the process in out of conference games to look at, makes this conference look a little bit more down than probably they are. But they are definitely not the same NJAC monster that we used to see back when. In fact, I would say the Liberty League right now is greater than the NJAC, which 20
Yeah.
years ago, 15 years ago, that would have been like, what are you talking about, Rossi? There's no way. Well, right now, I think
Yeah.
we're there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you 100%. I mean, obviously, in the interconference matchups, they haven't fared as well. I think the departure of Wesley and maybe the dilution of talent in that sort of Jersey, Mid-Atlantic area has hurt them these past few seasons. We've seen it in a variety of different ways, and maybe it'll take some time, but yeah, that's kind of where things are. But when you pair up with a conference like the Centennial, which arguably is the best in Region 2, I mean, I know the Liberty League and some others might want to question that, but when you just sort of look at overall performance, even if you factor in that Susquehanna, technically of the landmark, is the defending Centennial champion from last year. I mean, that's a really solid conference right there. So it's going to be tough to get wins against those teams. End of the day, we'll have to see how Christopher Newport does. They have an interesting matchup this weekend against Dickinson, who had a big win, that kind of controversial win. It looks like that was one of those. It reminded me of the Utica Morrisville game from last year, where the clock expired and maybe the last score really shouldn't have counted, but it did. Hey, but that's how it goes sometimes in D3. We don't have instant replay. We're not on television and all that. But hey, that's how it shakes out sometimes. But the captains have a chance to get a signature win over a pretty good Centennial team in Dickinson if they can this weekend.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see for sure. And some interesting games, not necessarily the powerhouse games that we've been growing accustomed to coming up in week 6. More on that on Friday,
Yep.
obviously. But a week 5 that makes you scratch your head in certain ways. Mount Union not playing fully to their potential. It feels like their defense is doing lights out. So I'll give the
Yeah,
defense
yeah.
credit. The offense, so not ticking as well as I would have assumed at this point. Whitewater inconsistent at times, but taking care of Oshkosh for sure now, which we thought Oshkosh would show more in that game. And Hardin Simmons struggling against Howard Payne. Trinity struggling against Barry. Sewanee becoming the team that they've become. Teal saying Grove City not so
Yeah.
fast. We're still out here. I mean, we've got some interesting storylines playing out for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And then a lot of conferences that, as we said at the top of the show, it's still jumbled up. And so we won't know much until probably about 2 or 3 weeks from now who's who and what's what in those conferences. What's your final thoughts here for our Week 5 Crunch Time show?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of covered week 5 pretty well, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit on Friday. I've done a little homework behind the scenes on what I think are sort of the leading indicators going into the halfway mark of the season. There are some certain conferences in the 28 Pool A automatic qualifier bid group where it seems like there's a pretty clear front runner, but there's still a handful that are very much up in the air, and a couple that still have some big sort of favorites versus number one contender games still to come. So nothing's really been decided just yet, but it'll be interesting this weekend. We don't have as many marquee matchups, but there are some big conference games still in each region, and we'll focus in on those and talk about them a little more on Friday.
We'll probably talk about Freddy Krueger. Anyway, that's our show. And,
I think Tony is it's gonna be a Dragon Slayer theme, Frank. I think there's gonna be like a knight with a plastic shield and a sword and something about dragon slaying. It's got Moose Hogan's gonna have his championship belt out, looking for dragon steaks or something like that. You gotta keep an eye on Big Tone to see what he does. Always entertaining in his previews each week.
Yeah, Tony, remember, podcast safe music when you do those things, please, so that the copyright police don't come after us. Just a reminder for folks that want to see their videos or hype videos and whatnot on our show, we have to be judicious about that because Facebook is very quick at picking up copyrights for whatever reason. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're getting right now anyway. So, folks, we'll see you on Friday on our live show. Slightly earlier than normal on Friday morning because JB's got a trip to make, so we'll obviously be on archive right away after the show is done if you can't catch it live. We'll see you on Friday morning.